Okay, so now we would be starting by creating our application. Just click on Xcode and create a new project. You have to select that option. Under that, you would select app under iOS and then click on next. Then you would give your application a name, and inside team, it's okay if it's empty. If you have signed in your Xcode, then it's fine. And for the lifecycle, you could just select either of the SwiftUI or UI kit. It's completely fine. So before we just select the final location, just review what we have done here. We have not checked any of the boxes. So yeah, just click on next and choose any location of your own choice, and then like you can click on create, and then Xcode will give us the basic skeleton project on which we would create an application. So our application would be like, let's first select the simulator. Yeah, so our application would be just a one page application, so you don't really need to switch between the files. So it's completely fine for now to like leave it as it is. Yeah. So now that we have done this much, let's just resume the simulator so that the preview generates, and this would be like really basic, just showing hello world. So let's just wait while Xcode generates the preview for us. There you go. So now that we have this thing, we need to like first add some background color to our application, since I don't think so white would be like really interesting. So for that we would need to create a Z stack, and inside of Z stack we would place it actually works in like Z axis, so if you just place something on top of the Z stack and then something just below it, then the second thing that we put would appear on top of the first thing. I guess you are getting the point of it. So now if you just click on this, it ignores the safe area. No, not exactly. For that we need to use a modifier as well, which is called ignore safe area, and make sure that there's only one period in front of your modifier. That's the correct syntax for a modifier. So since we are done with this much, Xcode automatically generates the preview, which like works completely fine. So now that we have added a background color to our application, let's just create a VStack now. VStack actually stacks all the view in a vertical column way. So now that we have done this much, so we would be like, let's just import the images which we would be using. I have provided the zip file for that, which contains all the images, so it is really easy for you and you don't need to name anything. You just have to drag and drop. So you could see that the first 5 images are named in numbers. That's exactly why we are going to use them inside our picker, but the rest are named normally according to their relevant show name. So I would like explain it to you later on as well, that why they are named in numbers. Also you could use command S to save a file. It's not really relevant, like it automatically saves the file as well, but it's okay to do that. Now that we have done this much, so before just creating our picker, we need to create some data which we would be using inside our picker. So for that, let's create a state property as I described to you in the lesson 1 also, like how we should use the state property. It should be used inside views which need to change their state when the user interacts with them. So for that we would like continue with it, and we would declare it as a private variable as Xcode recommends, since it is only limited to this particular page. Let's just name this selected anime with a value of 0, like this would be the first index of our picker. Now let's just create an array which we would be using to like use the data from. So you see, in order to make this application like completely beginner friendly, I am not using any JSON decoding or anything, so it becomes really easy for you as well to grasp onto the main thing that I want to tell you about, is that how you should use state properties. So here I'm just giving writing down the anime names. I had previously written it down in a sheet of paper, so I'm just copying it from there. These are some of the famous anime names, and I'm just writing like 5 of these, so as to make this tutorial super simple and like really easy to understand for you, and we should not drift away from our main topic, which is like using the state property. So yeah, there you go, the array is created. So now we would write the syntax for the picker. So it essentially starts by writing picker itself, then you use like parentheses, and inside of that you would give it a parameter and a selection. So it is recommending us some syntaxes, but I believe that it's not the right one we are looking for, so let's just write it on our own. So obviously the parameter is a string type which like tells the person that what exactly he is choosing from. It not exactly shows up inside the wheel picker view, so it's fine. Now you would use the selection parameter, and inside of which here comes the main thing, for enabling two-way binding we would use the dollar sign. Let me just create some more space so we can work more freely. Now when you close the parenthesis you need to add some curly braces also, inside of which the picker would go through the items of that array that we just created using a for each loop. So this is essentially how a for each loop works. We are just using a range operator here which goes from 0 to the total count of the array. Since array contains like 5 elements, so the less than sign means that the array is it would not include the last count, so it would go from 0 to 4 exactly how we want it to, because you know that the array indexes start from like 0 to 0 1 2 3 4, so these are 5 elements, so they would go like 0 1 2 3 4. So to make things more clear we would be using a variable which I named something, and then we write the keyword in. Then we would be displaying obviously the text which corresponds to the specific index of that array. I hope I am able to tell you that like by using the something variable we are going over each and every item of the array and we are listing it inside the picker. So that's essentially how it's done, and I believe I have some syntax error inside our for each loop. So one of this that we are using a local array and we are not using the id property, so I think we need to fix that. Also the range operator is wrong here, so maybe it doesn't really always require the id property, so it's better for us. So I just need to fix that range operator. Now we need to give a space after 0 that I forgot to give, so I will just get back to you in a minute. Now since we have done this much, let's just check how our preview would show up to be. So I just pressed command B, which means to build, and it would show up how our picker is. Right, so you can just click on the top left and you can use your interact with your application. So for now we cannot really make sure of the fact that our two-way binding is working as it's only showing the picker. So in the next lesson we would work on that.